It's 1965. The Beatles are everywhere. The Rolling Stones are climbing the charts. America has just completed its first spacewalk. Color television is finally finding its way into more living rooms. A gallon of gas costs about 31 cents, and almost every family still gathers around one television at the end of the day. But none of those things stop a kid in the middle of a game. One sound does: the mailbox. Because in 1965, there were 5 things that could arrive in that mailbox, and every one of them could make your entire week. Which one were you hoping for? In late August, while the summer heat still lingered, a heavy package dropped onto the porch. The Sears Wish Book had arrived, signaling the unofficial start of Christmas months before December. Mailed to over 18 million American homes, this massive 674-page volume felt like a sacred text the moment you dragged it onto the living room floor. Sears knew exactly how to build the anticipation. They buried the toy section deep in the back, forcing you to flip past pages of washing machines, heavy tools, and winter coats before you reached the real prize. But that journey was half the fun. Suddenly, the floor became a gallery of dreams. You stared at the Schwinn Stingray with its chrome banana seat, Lionel train sets, Aurora slot cars, G.I. Joe, heavy steel Tonka trucks, and erector sets. With a colored pencil in hand, the real work began. You carefully circled your choices, folded down page corners, and memorized the prices to pitch to your parents. If you had siblings, you negotiated territory, sharing the pages or marking your initials in the margins. Your parents might have tried to hide the thick book to keep some peace, but they ultimately used those marked pages to budget for the holidays. Decades later, the specific gifts might be forgotten, but the feeling of lying on the carpet, dreaming of what was possible, remains. When you finally got your hands on that thick catalog, what did you circle first? Every Tuesday, a much smaller package arrived. Slipping easily into the mailbox, the weekly TV guide was tiny enough to fit in a parent's pocket, yet it held absolute authority over your family's evenings. In 1965, 92% of American homes had a television, but almost everyone had just one. That single, heavy mahogany console in the living room was a shared resource, and the little digest was the battleground map. Before supper, the negotiations began. You, your siblings, and your parents huddled around the kitchen table, trading chores and bedtime extensions to secure your favorite programs. The stakes were absolute. If you missed an episode of Gilligan's Island, Gunsmoke, or The Wonderful World of Disney, it was simply gone, lost to the airwaves. For most families, Friday night was the ultimate prize. You would gather on the carpet as the NBC Peacock flashed across the screen, the announcer proudly declaring the broadcast was brought to you in living color. Of course, in 1965, only about 9% of homes actually owned a color set. For the rest of us, the Cartwrights rode across a dusty Ponderosa in shades of gray. But it didn't matter. The real magic wasn't the color of the screen, but the rare moment of everyone sitting in the same room, agreeing on what to watch. Looking back, which Friday night show did your family never, ever miss? On any given afternoon, you could find a thick, pocket-sized magazine tucked under a sofa cushion, resting on Grandpa's favorite armchair, or stuffed into the glove compartment of the family station wagon. Reader's Digest was officially meant for the grown-ups, but once they finished reading, it quietly became yours. You probably started at the very back, flipping through the clean jokes in Humor in Uniform or the quick, relatable anecdotes of life in these United States. It was a gentle doorway into more mature reading. Soon, You found yourself testing your vocabulary with word power, or holding your breath through the harrowing survival accounts of drama in real life. On the living room bookshelf sat the heavy, beautifully patterned hardcovers of Reader's Digest condensed books, extending this quiet reading habit. Holding one made you feel like you were handling a real piece of adult literature. By patiently turning those small pages, you weren't just passing the time on a rainy Sunday, you were borrowing maturity, sneak reading the articles your parents discussed at the kitchen table, and slowly discovering that the world was much larger and far more complicated than your own neighborhood. When you snuck a look at your parents' copy, did you read the jokes first, or did you flip straight to drama in real life? Sometimes, the most important reading of your month didn't happen at home. It happened in the quiet, sterile waiting room of a pediatrician or dentist's office. On the low table, among the outdated medical journals, lay a bright, pristine copy of Highlights for Children. With its strict no advertising policy, it was a wholesome oasis in a world of looming anxieties, and it instantly turned a morning of dread into a quiet adventure. Your hands went straight to the back cover, chasing the ultimate prize, hidden pictures. You grabbed a borrowed dull pencil from the receptionist's desk and began the hunt. Within those black and white lines, the ordinary became extraordinary. You squinted at the page, searching for a boot hidden in the trunk of a tree, a spoon floating in a fluffy cloud, or a fish cleverly disguised as an autumn leaf. Once the puzzle was solved, you flipped the pages to meet Goofus and Gallant. These two boys, one a baseline of rudeness and the other a model of perfect etiquette, offered a gentle mirror where you couldn't help but recognize your own daily struggles. Between the moral lessons, you lost yourself in riddles, brief science facts, and short stories that made the ticking office clock fade into the background. For 20 quiet minutes, you were the master of your own little world, completely absorbed until a nurse in a white uniform stepped into the doorway and called your name. When you look back on those anxious office visits, how many hidden pictures did you manage to find before your name was called? Once a month, a bright golden frame arrived in your mailbox. Long before satellite maps, search engines, or streaming video, that thick yellow border was your window to the world. It was a pre-digital portal, bringing the farthest corners of the earth directly to your living room rug. Flipping through the heavy, glossy pages, you traveled instantly. One moment you were tracking wild elephants through the dusty plains of Kenya. The next, you were diving into the vivid blue of the Pacific Ocean alongside pioneering oceanographers, or staring at astronauts preparing for humanity's next leap into the stars. When astronaut Ed White floated untethered in the vacuum of space for 23 minutes during the Gemini 4 mission in June of 1965, the magazine captured the quiet, weightless majesty of that moment. Your father never threw them away. Instead, he carefully preserved the issues, stacking them by year in the damp basement or on sturdy wooden shelves in the garage because they felt far too important to discard. They became an enduring library of human achievement and curiosity. On those dusty shelves, the magazines quietly worked their magic, inspiring future pilots, photographers, scientists, park rangers, and teachers, along with those who never traveled far from home but still loved to dream. Decades later, the paper may have yellowed and the ink may have faded, but the quiet sense of wonder remains. Which of those iconic photographs stayed with you the longest? Tell us about your own mail day memories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this trip back to 1965, please subscribe. Today, our screens offer instant connection, yet we long for the magic of waiting. We miss the anticipation that brought us together around the kitchen table. Which arrival do you remember most? Share your memories in the comments below. Subscribe for more nostalgic journeys.